Hello YouTube family, James Green, short series Shenanigans. So today's Sunday Shenanigans episode, as you can see I'm sporting just my plain t-shirt. Gotta love it. Got this one off internet there on Facebook, you know, they have the t-shirt ads, so anyway. Alright, this is kind of, I guess if you will, a continuation of the episode of the unboxing of the SquareMaster. Now I've still got the face of it off, and I figured today would be, because I learned a lot, and I talked to Stan Zikoski, check his channel out, because he has one of these, and he had similar issues to what I had. Now, PMC is still in business, so, and they're actually in Cleveland, Ohio, or Wycliffe area, and so everybody's curious what we're talking about. This is a piece of equipment. Okay, I was lucky enough to get a manual with mine. So there's actually a 16 pages if you count them all together that give you the information. You can't find this, or I wasn't able to, because I looked ahead of time just to make sure. They don't readily hand this information out, I guess, unless you buy one of their instruments. Well, I was lucky. I didn't get this from PMC. I got this used, and it's in very, very good shape. Matter of fact, the calibration sticker on here was June of this year, or correction, June of last year, 2015. So here is the front cover that's off of it. Okay, and you can see the calibration sticker, and then of course that's that serial number up there for whenever they had it. So let me set this out of the way. Lots of good useful information. I need to scan this and put it into digits. So, and I say digits meaning in a digital format. So that way, if you happen to have one of these and you don't have the manual, I'll be able to like email it to you. I'm not going to sell it to you. I'll just give it to you. But a lot of useful information in here. They give basic care and instructions of when you unpack it and how you go about setting things up, the do's, the don'ts. It's really good information and gives you a lot on a basic user end. Now it's kind of like with all things, again, as I say in my videos, live and unedited, I'm not a professional. I don't use these professionally as a living. I'm not a tool and die maker by any means. I want to throw that out there right now. The way I approached my problem was in the video, because as you guys remember, this granite piece had shifted a bit. Now, this is, I'm going to throw some information out here, so that way if you guys go to buy one of these, okay, and someone's going to ship it to you, maybe things you can tell them ahead of time. Hey, before you ship it, would you do me a favor? And I'll just go ahead and start with that first. Let me go ahead and move my indicator over here out of the way so I don't accidentally do anything, because there's stuff that's going to be moving on and off here. First off, the cover, you pull two small cap screws down here. Now this has to be lying over on its side because there's a channel here and it slides out. But before you do, you have to pull these two cap screws and take this bar off, and then it slides right out. Okay, in the book they basically say to keep this clean, wipe it down with alcohol and to get any dust or whatever. I blew it out. I wiped it down with alcohol because I had some alcohol wipes, and then I also have some denatured alcohol. And what I found worked well to get, you don't want to pull this out if at all possible, and by any means do not move any of those little set screws in and around that. You start messing with those little set screws and you just don't want to. So what I did is I blew in there real good with air. Now I talked about this, my air nozzle, I've got this, you know, to where it's way down, it's real direct air, nothing that's going to poke a hole in your skin. But I blew everything out really, really good. And I went back with my Standridge granite plate cleaner, and this is the grime that came off of that granite plate. that was in there. Yes, all of that right there, because I had it doubled over. All of that nastiness came off. There was an oil, and who knows, this cover may have never been off since this thing was new. Now, I looked in the book, and I know this was built, I'm going to say, in the 80s, because the date on that book in the back was whenever someone had them sign this, was back in 1990. Yeah, January the 9th, 1990. So I'm going to safe to say this was built in the 80s. So I'm going to venture a guess, and I could find out. I could call them and say, hey, serial number, when was it built? I'm not too concerned about that. So I'm going on the presumption that this may have not been off, if so, very few times. So we blew it out, cleaned it up, and wiped it down, and then we went back with the granite plate cleaner. Worked great. It pulled it, because first I did alcohol preps and wipes and went in there with 2x2s and just like they said, and blew it off. Went back with granite cleaner, and you saw what came off. You're not supposed to have oil or grease on that, and there was, believe it or not. It almost looked like at one time something may have probably sprayed toward the front. I don't know. Anyway, nice and clean, got it off, wiped it down, and I thought in previous video that this cap screw was loose. It was not. As a matter of fact, it's just fine. These are made to move a little bit side to side, because as this goes up and down, okay, and that's normal for it to kind of squeak a little like that. As long as it slides up and down real smooth, I'm not too concerned about that. And temperature has a lot to do with how these things expand and contract, or this does, and the granite. Like right now we're 62 degrees in the garage. So one thing I did learn from talking to Stan, and I'm glad I did, and it really makes sense. Now, I could tell that when I got this, you guys saw on camera, this had slid. And I could also see at the bottom down here where this one had actually gotten loose, and it kind of chewed, not really chewed, but it marked the granite. He made a valid point. Hey, if you have a little piece of rubber or something that kind of gives it a little, you really don't want metal against granite, and down here and up there, just to keep it from sliding side to side. It's not going to slide front to back. So to keep it from sliding side to side is I put, and I have, old school military, I've got a bunch of this floating around being a medic, moleskin. I thought, okay, which I've got some over here on the bench. I was thinking, little pieces of rubber. Oh, wait a minute. The reason I like the moleskin is you cut the little sizes you need with scissors, and you peel the adhesive off the back. So that's what I did, because I know that moleskin does not hold moisture. And we're not using any oils, so we don't have to worry about it. So I cut two small pieces, put one in behind this clamp here, and then I put a small piece you can see up there. And all that is to give it a little bit of more of a clamping force, if you will. Because even when I had this set up before that, if I would tilt this, I could hear, and it would, the granite wanted to slide side to side. Now, it's not clamped enough to cause any damage or force to the granite plate. It's just, and when you go to move this, you need to be very gingerly with it. One thing else I would also say is, if you're going to pack this up to move it, slide the cover off. Okay, let's say you're going to pack it up to put it up in storage for a while. Well, or you're going to move, for example, or you're going to, let's say, if you're going to sell this to somebody, what I would recommend is take this off, and get you some foam and put in here. Kind of get them equal lengths. Say put this, about halfway, and put you some foam in either side of this, on either side in here. Kind of wedge it in there, because you're going to have to, every time you get it up, and you're going to have to reset and re-level, and I'll go through that. But maybe put, a couple pieces of foam here and foam in there, and even bring them to the point where it's equal, so everything's set. So that way, in shipping, and you slide the cover back on. So that way, in shipping, when the other person, hey, take the cover off, or to take the cover off, pull your styrofoam out, blow it out, because every time you get ready to reuse it, even before I do stuff, I always recheck the level, even though this hasn't really moved except a couple inches here and there. Every time I set this or remove it because of temperature change, again, I'm not a laboratory, but for my stuff, it might be a half tenth or a tenth off, tenth and a half, whatever. It's just a quick couple adjustments on the set screws. So, moving right along. What I did was to determine a good average distance, because you guys remember this thing was all off and I was trying to find center. Primarily worried about sweeping up and down, not so much side to side, but I still wanted it pretty close. Now, in the book, it says that this can have a total, well, mine actually has 1,000th total push side to side. Now, I'm just checking it with a tenths indicator, and that's within spec. You don't want it 0, 0. You need to have it, it needs to have room so as temperature change. Again, temperature affects all this. So, you don't want it tight. You don't want it super loose. So what I did is I opened up, got my gauge pins out here, my -2 set. This one is from 0.251 to ½ inch. And I came in here and slowly started figuring out. And what I used as a general reference was, I figured, okay, how deep do I want to go? And so the depth of this is here is approximately a ½ inch. So what I did was, what I ended up finding the size that worked was the 410 thousandths pin. What I did was, and I've cleaned it off now, but I actually went on and I made a little mark with a blackout or Sharpie marker. Went in there and figured out, okay, ½ inch in, and just measured and got my distance down between. Now there's some imperfections on the inside of the case, so sliding it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. I just, at the top and the bottom here, okay, went in the ½ inch, wiggled it, got that one around, kind of snugged it up, and then I went and did the same thing up here until I got to, now this is all the way up to the point where, okay, it's in, you come over here, it's in, and it's in, and it's in. Now I know I'm able to tell that on the inside of this, because it's just a casting, there's a little bit of difference, and I could see it on the inside of the casting because I measured while I had it down. There's a little imperfection, so again, it's not precise, but I got myself within, you know, a couple of tenths, honestly. Once I did that, I tightened it back up. I redid the same thing after I installed these, and then when I did that, I got my, so that got me to where the granite is relatively straight again, side to side. So then, at that point, we're done with the gauge pins. We'll get them out of the way. What I did next, and you got to make sure everything's clean. I always keep my air hose handy, just to, because you always feel grit. Okay, as I started off with, and I pulled out the old, and I have two of them here. I have one that I got when I was out there last year at the, I have a standards block. This used to be stands. We did some trading and I got that one. So, and I already cleaned this thing today, so it's still dry and squeaky. But this is flush here. I know this for a fact because he demonstrated that to me. So I know this is a flat surface. I know this is a perfectly flat surface. And I also double checked with this one. It's flat here and here. And so I even got that from Brad, basement shop guy. That was a deal him and I did. That was a pretty good deal. So this is 8 inches tall, or correction, this is 9 inches tall here. Now I know from testing that I checked it against this, and they're both parallel. Okay. Come up here, found 0. I set up my indicator, and I ended up sweeping, and I had it all set up. Where is the piece? Here we go. It was kind of a weird setup, but for right now, until I get me a, I'm either going to make or redo this setup. Oh, here we go. But it worked good for me for right now. Slide this back in here. Okay. I need to get a dedicated setup just for this that'll work with my indicator here. Almost need a third hand. There we go. Okay, so we slid this back in here. And what I did was, I came down here, found 0, and I started at the bottom, or relatively, you know, doesn't have to be perfectly down at the, this doesn't have to be all the way down, but the further the better. Came up here, bumped it into where I got 0, and then swept up. Okay, now this has even changed a little bit from the temperature a while ago, and I've moved a couple things around. But each time you do it, you're going to need a 3/16 wrench. Okay, and I will demonstrate, because I did it off to the side and also here. What mainly is critical is backwards and forwards, but what I did to make sure everything is good, and I will spin this around, so you have a side to side, and down in here in the bottom, if you pop these off, you'll see there's a 3/8 size Allen wrench. Do not put a 3/8 Allen wrench in that. Those are set from the factory. Those are actually the hard insets, and they're calibrated with the one leg you cannot move. Inside of those, there is a nut that is 3/16. Okay, those are the ones, and even if you put it on the short side, it'll fit. Okay, you slide it down in there, and there you go. Every time you get ready to set up and use this, you'll need to do a sweep with a known flat surface to adjust just side to side and front to back. So side to side, you'd sweep with it here, and then to do front to front, all you do is rotate, and then you'll do a sweep. Okay, you'll find your 0, and you'll sweep top to bottom. And as you have it, it's like, okay, this is the one you move to adjust side to side, which the one you're going to be checking most of the time, or I will, because I'm going to check both of them, is you'll go to here to the back, on the back, and you'll adjust it. And that adjusts the tilt forward and backward. Again, and it varies on your plate. I'm sure in labs they probably have areas where these things are pretty much marked off to the exact spot. I know for me, whenever, depending on what I'm getting ready to do, I'm probably going to set this up at probably a bit of an angle like so. So I have a lot of work area. I can still reach both sides. Again, you're going to set up what I talked about before, whatever works good for you inside your setup. And again, it's like we talked about the do-all gauges. You know, you use your imagination, you set up what works for you. At first, I was thinking, okay, this is above my head. Then I went, wait a minute, okay, let's stop and think about this. Let's go back to the basics. And from what I could tell right there, and bouncing it off stand we talked about, and honestly the stuff I could see in the book that they talked about, there's no damage. I'm not taking any of this stuff apart. It's just kind of, I guess if you will, you create your own standard, what works for you. I was thinking about, hey, I need something to sweep all the way up here. Realistically, me personally, I'm not going to be doing a lot of really tall stuff. If in the unlikely event I have to do something that tall, then I will look around for and try to find a really tall, 18-inch, 20-inch straight edge, and then I'll be able to set the full. But honestly, 9 inches from there to there, that's that's going to do the vast majority of anything I need to do. Honestly, most of the time, a lot of this stuff, other than vertical, it's going to be like you've seen. Most items, you're going to have them here, and you're going to bring them in, and you're going to find your height that you want. For example, if we wanted to sweep the top of this, we're going to come in here, we're going to set our height, and we're going to set our 0, and we're going to slide the part underneath our indicator. For me, and what I'm doing, that's going to be the vast majority of stuff, is going to be sliding the item underneath. So you get it set up where you want to use it for your, I guess if you want to call it your work cycle. You set your side to side. Let's say we're going to mark it there. Okay, that'll be our spot. You set your side to side, front to back. And that for today, and the temperature we're working, because, a week from now it might be colder out here or it might be hotter. You come in, you check it, you do your sweeps, sweep this way, sweep that way, and you have it in place. So yeah, this kind of looks like an abortion right here, if you will. Pardon me. You know, I don't know. We'll call it not an abortion. We'll call it a mess. Okay. But I just wanted to put something together. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to end up making a threaded stud, because the more movable joints you have in something, the more something can go wrong, the more flex. And I will. This was just to kind of get this basically set up. I'm happy with, you know, again, another use for gauge pins right there. Kind of find the happy medium. What worked well for me may not work well for anybody else, but I didn't see any other videos on YouTube on how to deal with, and I thought for today's video this would be a phenomenal opportunity. Again, I don't design and build these. I'm sure there's guys out there that probably dealt with a lot of these in the past. Please comment down, let us know. Hey, if there's anything I've missed, let's say you have a viewer out there and you used to build these, or you've had experience with these, if constructive comments, I welcome them, please. But you know, I'm probably going to end up making me something that screws in here that will fit my indicator setup a lot better. Again, this was just, okay, I need to get it to where it's functioning, and so you dig through the drawers and what can I cob together to get me, we'll go back through and double check everything. But so that was pretty handy. I'm going to take this off, slide it out of there, set my indicator over here out of the way. There. Now, let's see, we'll slide that off. This was in very good shape. Again, it was just, wherever it was used at, this isn't something you get into a lot of, or probably the employees were told don't go into it, which most stuff, if it's above your technical grade or knowledge, you don't go in there. And most people don't. So let's see, let's get I think that'll work, a wrench. Now, one thing I did find interesting, and I'm glad I spoke with Stan about that when he mentioned putting something in between on the clamps. Okay, because I noticed when I did tilt this to the side and I went back to check it, my thing, everything was off, because this was up, so there was weight here. The top had actually slid over again after it was clamped. So having that in there is going to give a little more compression. So, because it does have a couple of areas here where you can lift it. That's where you're supposed to lift and tip and turn everything. Gives a serial number, model number, all that. And for those of you that are curious, that's what the back looks like. There's a little surface rust on there. I'll probably get in there with just I'll try to clean it up a little bit, but I'll probably try to slip a little, because I don't want oil on there. I'm going to be real careful and probably maybe sneak a little rust blue on there, or not rust blue, cold bluing, just so it'll stop the bad rust. Put the good stuff on, because I don't want to take this thing apart just because of a little surface stuff. Don't want to get carried away. I don't want oil around it, so I don't know. That's one of those things. You're darned if you do, and you're darned if you don't. Slide these off here. Okay. Set those over. Now I'm going to very gently and that slides up. Okay. And that'll do that because those are actually spring loaded a little bit. And it's sitting right there. It's not going to go anywhere. We're going to slide, because these are slotted. They slide back up in here. And there's actually lots of room for this to actually slide side to side. Quite a bit, considerably. And these are actually 1/8 inch cap button head screws. course, you always have to drop it now. Ow! An Allen wrench. I hate bending over. That hurts. So we'll just tighten those down real light. Again, actually, while I have that laying down, and this bar is marked, believe it or not. It says top. So we will definitely put that back to where it says top. And these holes are very, very tight in here. So it's, if you're worried about when you bolt it back in, is it going to cock sideways or cant off to one side or the other? I haven't experienced that yet. Haven't had any issues. Okay. Now we'll slide this back on here. See how well it. Setting it down very so carefully. And it clears everything. Again, some people would be worried about the screech. I'm not moving it up and down a lot. It's really cool out here right now. Works really well. And so there we go. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. SquareMaster made by PMC. Hopefully today, by me doing this, for those of you that may have one or may be thinking about one, hopefully I've passed along some knowledge, stuff I've learned. That's why I always like to do my videos. I learned a lot from this. I learned a lot from Stan. Again, I mentioned it a lot, or mentioned him a lot. I had to work through this and think, okay, what made sense to me? And when I bounced it back off of Stan, he's like, yeah, you're right. That's kind of how I had to do mine. He wasn't fortunate enough to have a manual. Now I made sure he's got all the information. If you have one of these and you don't have the manual, holler at me. Like I said, I'm going to try to get it scanned into digits. And so that way we'll be able to, hand it out. So that way, there you go. You have some knowledge about that's what the inside of one of these looks like. And we are going to be doing some more stuff with these, and we'll always make sure we show it on video. And so I wanted to make sure, like I said, the only thing that I've done that's not factory was I've added that little piece of those little piece of moleskin, and that way I know. And that's the only thing I would recommend, is just a little something in here. And I didn't even think about it till he mentioned it. Other than that, I mean, it's, I'm not even going to pull this stuff off. I'm going to leave it. Obviously, that's going to stay there. And I do have a cover that is going to set over the top of this when it's up here. So it's just to keep the dust and the grime and the grease out and everything. So whenever I get done, I'm always going to pull whatever's on the front of here, comes off the face, and it will go in the drawer. So that way there's no accidental something getting moved, especially in a small place like I have. You snap or it gets knocked off. So anyway, there we go. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope this has been educational, and as I say at always end of my videos, take care of yourself and take care of your family, because remember, at the end of the day, you and your family is all you got. Until next week or next video, you guys be safe and wear your protective equipment. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.